This is for Task Sheet 390 on engine vibrations. This is something I'm not really going to be able to demonstrate here at the house. I'm certainly not trying to hurt my truck anymore. But engine vibrations can be pretty tricky to track down, or vibrations in general, because that's one of the things that you're going to need to do is actually determine if it's in the engine or if it's in the driveline or the wheels, or there's lots of different things that can cause a vibration. We're dealing with a lot of moving parts and a lot of parts that move at pretty high speeds. So the first thing I would do is try and determine if this is a vibration that occurs while we're moving or while we're at a stop. If it's while we're sitting still at idle or whatever, sitting at a red light or a stop sign, it's most likely going to be in the engine. Not always, but if we do determine that it's in the engine, one of the first things I'll do is take the serpentine belt off, and that'll quickly isolate any of the accessories, alternators, whatever pumps you got on there, harmonic balancer. Well, the balancer will still be turning, but you can pretty much eliminate everything else just by popping that belt off. So that's usually where I start. But if we got to test drive this thing, we're gonna drive around and we're gonna try and really kind of feel for this vibration, and you're gonna try and kind of pay attention to see if this increases or decreases with speed, something like that. If it does, it's most likely not going to be in the engine. It's going to be somewhere else in the driveline, maybe a U-joint or a drive shaft, or even wheels and tires. You'd be surprised how many people don't notice really out of balance wheels and tires, because it's typically a gradual thing, so they kind of get used to it and they don't notice. But if you hop in it and have never driven the vehicle before, it may be really obvious to you. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Sometimes one thing people will do if it gets if you're having a hard enough time tracking this down, is you pull the starter out and pull the bolts and separate the your flex plate from your torque converter if you have an automatic transmission. And then that'll kind of isolate your engine from the rest of the driveline and the torque converter and everything. Just keep in mind, some manufacturers really don't recommend this. I know GM in the last couple years have come out and told us not to do this anymore, because you can actually damage the like the pilot hole in the back of the crankshaft. So just kind of be careful when you're doing that. One thing that I would like to do when I would have a vibration that I was trying to track down is use your alignment rack. Get that thing up on the jacks, up off of the alignment rack. Something like this truck, the reason why we'd want to do that is because we can lift it off the axle, or on a front wheel drive car we can lift it off the lower control arms, and you get the your drive line at the right angles, at your operating angle, so it's kind of everything's in the same position as it would be as you're driving down the road, versus if you pick it up on the lift by the frame, then your suspension sags and all your angles are kind of out of whack. So it may have a vibration just from that. Say your U-joints are operating at too much of an angle. So you want to try and recreate what it would actually be like driving down the road. So there are some tools out there in the GM world. We had a thing called a picoscope, and it was a vibration analyzer. You could you'd hook it up to your laptop, and there was a little sensor that with a magnet on it, and you would stick it to the seat track. If you felt the vibration, in your butt when you're driving around, or maybe if it's in the steering wheel, you'd hook it up to the steering column. Basically, they want you to test on what we'd call the transfer path, wherever you're going to pick up that vibration the best, and it will give a numerical order or a value to that vibration, and you can kind of compare that to some charts and stuff, and see where everything falls in. Vibration analysis can get pretty complicated. There's different what we call orders of vibration, first, second, third, and so on. So it can get pretty in-depth and pretty involved. Typically, we can kind of track these things down before you have to go through all that stuff. But sometimes it can be slight enough that you need equipment like that. And it also kind of depends on how much money people want to sink into this. The reason why we had to do that complicated analysis at the dealership levels because these vehicles were under warranty. So the customer isn't having to pay hours and hours and hours to have somebody track this thing down. So they can get kind of picky about these vibrations, without any cost to them. So one of the things that we run into quite a bit recently is motor mounts. If you got a weird vibration, a lot of times those motor mounts will collapse, and it kind of takes the cushion out of there. So you're just getting the normal engine vibrations just transmitted into the frame or into the body of the car, and you're picking it up. Whereas a normal motor mount would isolate that. So that's something that we would find pretty frequently on a lot of different models of cars is collapsed motor mounts. So just one more thing to try and remember when you're tracking down a vibration. So far as the task sheet goes, like I said, we're not really going to be able to do any testing, but I think it's just kind of asked for possible causes of a vibration. So if it's in the drive line, we may have U-joints or CV axles on a front-wheel drive car, motor mounts. Serpentine belts themselves sometimes can cause vibrations if they get a hard spot in them. Any of our accessories, idler pulleys, alternators, whatever pumps you have, AC compressor, etc. But testing usually is going to involve a test drive. And when you are test driving, if you need to try and isolate a little bit, if you got it where it's actually vibrating, you can pop the transmission into neutral and see if that changes anything as your engine RPMs drop back off. Just be really careful messing around with the shifter when you're driving out on the road. So fill that out the best as you can. If you have any questions, again, hit me up or bring it up in the chat. So that's going to wrap it up for this one, and we will talk to you guys later.